Welcome to another episode of the Top Corner Podcast, and today is Monday, the first day of the week. So if you didn't have your coffee in the morning, you feel like your Monday didn't go right, you still have Tuesday, you still have the rest of the week. But it's 5/5/2025, and we are ready. Another week of the Champions League.
What a phenomenal voice that was. Sorry, I'm really taken aback by how high quality that voice was.
I know. I think I need to start prepping for being a radio host or something.
Yeah.
We got a whole week of Champions League ahead of us, and last week was a really good week.
Yeah.
And the weekend was also very, very good for those of you guys who like football, aka soccer.
No AKA. No AKA.
No AKA.
No AKA.
No AKA. Okay. Hey, but I'm just saying, you had a lot of entertainment around, so you can't say you were bored, because actually there was a lot of fire games.
Yeah. If you were bored, it was your fucking problem.
Yeah, that's you, man. That was solely you. But before we start, it's an interesting thing.
Solely you.
You know, a lot of players had good performance the past few days, but Rafinha's stats are up there, because, 2 months ago we were debating, all the football world, where they were all debating and having this conversation. Your top 5 in Ballon d'Or race you had Salah, the Egyptian king. You had, and this was at the top because, I guess also because the English guys were popping him up. The English media like to pop up their guys more than any other media. You had Salah at the top. You had Rafinha was there based on the stats, and you still had your Vinicius. You had Yamal, but he wasn't really in the top 5. But because of the recent events and games, and people have been kicked out of major events, now that Yamal even performed very well last week, guess what? By One Football did a survey, and right now Lamine Yamal is top contender to win the Ballon d'Or.
Yeah.
How do you feel about it?
You can tell that.
Do you think that it's normal? Because Rafinha's stats is up there, like he has the best stats.
It's not normal to be that young and be that successful. That's for a fact. But you can tell that the media especially are scared they're apprehensive about putting so much praise on him because he is so young. Not that they're worried about him sort of faltering because of the praise that he's getting. You don't want to attach your wagon to a horse with no legs, essentially. Yeah. You don't want to be saying that he's the next anything, and you shouldn't want that either. Of just like, oh, well, we've gone a few years without Lionel Messi being at the very top, so here's another guy. But you do always feel like someone else is a little bit older that's proved a little bit more, because he's played phenomenally, but he hasn't proven this a lot yet.
So let's take this year, because it's based on individual performance on a single year. Let's take this year so far. What will be your Ballon d'Or if you had to give one next week or tomorrow? Taking account the stats.
I don't see. I don't know, because I'm kind of in that same boat as well in terms of like who played the most impressively. But it's not necessarily who accomplished the most, and it's not, the season's not over yet now, because don't get me wrong, if he buries 2 against Inter and then does something in the finals, then obviously it's clear. So it's not done yet. But if you ask me who's standing out above that crowd, and you are right, it's there's 3 guys at the top of my head that I can think of. That's Rafinha, that's Salah, and that's Yamal. I mean, he's at the top in terms of what I feel he's contributed to this season.
So this is what I'm thinking. I think with also a little bit of recency bias, a little bit of also the wow factor. What I mean by the wow factor is, if you just take stats by stat, how it's supposed to be, Rafinha is supposed to lead it, because he has most goals right now, even in Champions League, goals in the La Liga. But the wow factor is, first of all, you have a wonder kid.
Yes.
Playing at that level. He had 100 touches against Milan, which is unheard of. And at 17 years old,
I was gonna say, it's like you don't want the age to be the reason.
But
because a 20-year-old and a 25-year-old can play at the same level. That's not that crazy, right? And the age does not necessarily change the performance itself. The performance itself is the performance itself.
Yeah.
The numbers are the numbers, and stats do not lie. And yes, it is impressive to see somebody at that young of an age do these things. But should that be the deciding factor when someone else has better stats and better performance throughout the season? I would be inclined to try, like the media sort of has, in a way. Some wield it as in like 7 years, superstar kid. Or like, you kind of do need to bypass the age a little bit for a little while. I mean, it's like, it is impressive to look at. Don't get me wrong, but it can become kind of gimmicky.
Yeah,
and it can, a kid's underperforming yet still impressive, debut season essentially can be put on a pedestal because of his age and not so much the performance itself. Yeah.
That's another thing. I feel like the recent performance also tilted the boat in his favor, and which is very, very interesting. The only thing I hate about the media is
one thing that you hate?
Yeah, well, a lot of things,
yeah,
but the one thing I hate.
It's a long list,
and this across all sport. Actually, it's like when you have a wonder kid or just a phenomenal talent that come across, the whole media, they feel, not really they feel, but they have this thing where they immediately compare that person, that talent, with the great of that sport at the same age. Because last week, I don't know, I know Julian is not really on social media like that, but there's a lot of comparison of Yamal at this age doing this. Ronaldo didn't do it at this age. Messi didn't do it at this age.
You know why they're doing that though? Because we talked about this last week as well. They know, like, they're still not done with the Ronaldo and Messi corpses.
Yeah.
Like, they have to keep dragging them out of the coffin.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, the guys are walking around, they're still alive, they're saying things, but their careers in Europe at that high platform are gone, and then they're never coming back. So what they're doing now is, because they can't get the headlines from what Messi and Ronaldo are doing, they're getting it from what Yamal is doing by comparing him as soon, because it's a way to keep Messi on the front page, Ronaldo on the front page.
That's true.
He's just now sharing it with a kid, and it's getting a lot of casual fans, because a lot of casual fans don't know Yamal yet. They don't keep up with any of even the biggest clubs. They don't actually keep up with them. They keep up with the headlines, and they'll recognize half that face on the cover now. And so it's going to be another 10 years at least that we're still going to be seeing
that's true.
Those same exact pictures of Messi and Ronaldo, just because this kid is the first one that appears to have it's the clinical finishing at the young age that's really making the comparisons. It's not so much the play styles, it's not so much the technique, because there are a lot of guys with great technique with no end result. Rafinha was that guy for years. And now all of a sudden, at a bit of a riper age, he's developed that finish. Under a new coach, he's developed that finish. This kid just looks, just how he's able to close those things down permanently in that final bit. It does remind you of those guys.
Barcelona has always had that issue too, because they had it. I remember when Ansu Fati burst into the scene, it was the whole polemic. But my thing is that we should stop the comparison of that sort. I'm not saying that you can compare, but of the sort of at 17, this guy wasn't doing that. Yes, Ronaldo wasn't doing any of that at 17 because Ronaldo was poor and he was still cleaning before going to play.
Yeah, he was still in Lisbon.
Yeah, he was still working and playing as compared to someone that grew up in a footballistic system where that's his life.
Well, and it's like
these things are uncomparable. Plus, also you take the era, right? Barcelona was in a deep crap after the Messi era where they didn't have people, so they had to, and financial issues, so they're having to draft out of La Masia, and these are young guys to avoid financial issues. Now it's normal that you have 16, 17 years old playing as compared to a team that do it. Like, you wouldn't have to, Yamal probably won't play in the old Barcelona where they had so it's just errors.
Well, and Messi was in the Barcelona youth squad around that age as well, so it's like it helps when you come from the youth program. Ronaldo didn't get to come through United at that young of an age. If he did, then maybe he would have been doing that stuff at that young of an age, but he wasn't.
That's true.
A lot of the reason that you see some American stars not performing at that same level is because they didn't have our youth system is not quite as thorough as theirs. You see these guys have been playing with the Barcelona Youth Academy since the age of like 9. It's like, you don't want to take anything away from the talent, but you're like, no shit.
Yeah.
At 17, he's doing that. Like, Messi being that young, it's like, well, yeah, that's what happens when you're in one of the 3 best youth academies on the planet. You become one of the best players on the planet. That's the academy.
That's true. It's the same thing as even when you look at Arsenal, like the Sakas. Yes, of course. At that young, he will be playing that amount of game, and he will be trusted, and he probably will develop the maturity quicker than other players, just because yes, he's been a player essentially his whole life.
Yeah, at a high level, and knowing as a
No.
young person, it's like it's part of what makes him also effective, because a lot has been coming out of him in terms of the media. He said like it just feels like he's playing a video game.
That's another
That
thing.
it's just like it just doesn't feel. He's like yeah, like I'm kind of able to do what I want. Like he doesn't feel the pressure, and that's partly what happens when from such a young age that you get a context of what you're doing. Like you don't know what it's like to play in a Champions League final, but you understand I'm in one of the best youth academies in the world because I could be trusted with this. Like you have more time as a player, as a person, as a young person to kind of come to terms with what might eventually be expected of you, if that makes sense.
I think that the fact that the young also play in their favor, in the sense that they really don't feel the pressure, because at this point they're so young, they're playing at this age. It's more of a game for them. Not that it's not serious, but think about you getting your best toys early. Yeah. So you don't feel like, I need to be hard on me. I'm still young. I'm really just enjoying my life, to be honest.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, like you are carefree inherently because you're a teenager, but also I do think that, like they have no concept of time. So it's not just a like, because kids will drive recklessly because they don't understand that the car is dangerous yet.
Yes.
It's not because they're like, well, I've got decades more of driving to do. It's not that. They just don't understand the responsibility. So it is a mix of not completely understanding the responsibility that is being asked of you. Yeah. And also understanding, this one game doesn't really matter that much to me because I am 17. That is true. It's like both those things together allow you, if you have the skill, which he does, and that's the difference. That's it. Because when Saka was so young, he played that way as well. Yeah. He'd rip his way down the wing. He'd cut inside. He'd cut outside. But you knew that the end product wasn't there yet. You could see that it could be. But I still remember the first 2 or 3 years of him being impressed by the technique and the movement of the ball and the fluidity, but knowing that as soon as he gets the ball, even if he's just outside the box, he's not advancing much further, and there's no end product at the end of it yet. Whereas Yamal has the end product now, and he knows that, and that I also think helps alleviate some of the pressure. Something's going to happen. Yeah, and he knows that.
I like seeing him play. That's another thing. Is man, this guy. That's why talent. You can equal talent. Talent comes in various forms. Some talents they come with a certain amount of maturity. Some talent comes with the expectation that you will still have to work in your craft. Because some people are talented to the point where they really don't feel like they have to work on their craft, just because it's natural to them. Eden Hazard. And some people like have the talent, because everyone in sport have the talent. I don't subscribe to the whole notion that this guy works hard. That's yes, he works hard, but he also has the talent. It's just that people are genius in different ways. Some people is just too much natural.
Some people have the ability and the talent, and when they train, they just focus on the things that they're good at. Yeah. Whereas there are certain players, and Ronaldo was one of those, and he talked about those. Of like, he doesn't want any weak points. He could have just been the guy with the great pace, with the great set piece finish, and that wouldn't have, and he wouldn't have had the career that he did because he was still playing at a high level without that same pace, because he had developed those things around him. If you accept the fact that you have one to three things that you do very well, and you just fine tune those things, eventually your declining athleticism will get the better of you. Yeah. So you do have to maintain like a Tony Cruz has, of just like becoming extremely well rounded, so that when I lose even more pace that I never had to begin with, it doesn't take that much away from me. And I think that Ronaldo was that way, whereas Eden Hazard was. I mean, his career began and ended because all he did was trust his natural ability. When you're young, that's great, and you are that good for that time. But once you slack off, age starts to get to you, and even though you're seeing yourself declining, you're not used to needing to apply yourself that way. That is true. And then it's gone.
On the flip side, though, Madrid might be considering 100 million sale for Rodrigo. Yep. And I feel like teams like City and Arsenal will really be great for them. I just wonder if Madrid wants to wait till Xavi Alonso comes in and actually, I don't know if it's confirmed. I know there's a lot of rumors, but their next coach comes in and actually, sift or filter the players he wants to. Yeah, and that
he could have already had a preliminary comment. He could have of just a what would give us the players that you definitely want to hold on to.
Yeah.
What are the players that you can
That's
do the
true.
most with? Which ones? Because at the end of the day, it's still not his decision. It's never the coach's decision.
Clubs like Madrid, though, it's kind of difficult.
Oh yeah. No, I mean,
Because-
like, yeah, the president might ask you,
That's true.
who do you want, or like of the squad, who works best for your plan? Because the president's not going to be out there making the
Yeah.
day-to-day decisions, but they're making the big financial decisions.
Yeah.
And so, a young coach, you do understand he's got a talent, like he's got a pull toward being successful already. He's only coached 3 seasons.
Yeah.
But you also know that his adaptability might not be where it needs to be. He's not a Carlo Ancelotti that sort of has all this experience and can make those decisions based on previous experiences.
Yes.
So you probably do need to have preliminary conversations of who can you use the most here? How are you going to use them? And
Yeah.
if you don't know exactly how you're going to use them,
Yep.
can you theorize what you might do or what? And so like you kind of have to listen to that young coach a little bit more than you would a veteran, because a veteran you just go, you'll figure it out. He's good. He's good to go. But like if he doesn't work in your system and you're bringing this guy in to be successful, but he's only successful in how he is able to see the game himself, maybe those guys do need to go.
That is true. I think if that's the case, I think someone like Arsenal, it's different because Saka and Rodrigo plays on the same wing though. So do you think Arsenal will be beneficial for Arsenal? More for City than Arsenal, just because there's nuances. Unless Arsenal is thinking about rotating and thinking about taking every single one in the big leagues in the big competition next year.
Rodrigo has played on the left for Madrid, especially when they've done 2-man fronts.
Yeah.
Part of the reason that he is on the third on the right wing is because he does have a better weak foot than Vinny.
Yeah.
And he's not a number 9.
Yeah.
And neither is Vinny.
Yeah.
So that's partly the example of Madrid kind of spreading themselves too thin with their forwards and having too many guys that honestly want the same spot.
Yes.
Whereas Rodrigo could go over to the left and he would provide more of a finished product than Martinelli. And he would definitely provide more pace than Trossard.
Oh, yeah.
I'd like to see them in a foot race together, actually, Martinelli and Rodrigo. I think that Martinelli's a little bit swifter in straightaways. If you need somebody to get from point A to point B all the way down the wing, Martinelli's your guy. But if you need somebody that can cut inside and make something actually develop in the play, Rodrigo's your guy, and you sacrifice that little bit of pace that Martinelli has for that.
But if you're thinking as Arsenal, you want to bring a striker in,
exactly, it doesn't fit the plan.
You probably will need to bring a tricky guy too, right? Because
you would, yeah.
You want someone that would develop plays and would potentially be trading through balls and just making sure
now
gets to your striker.
Is $100 million a fair price for? I think that it should be a little bit less at this moment, and I think that it's not that you wouldn't want Rodrigo at your club, and if we had a solid number 9 already, then that $100 million doesn't seem too far fetched. But you've got other things that you need to replace, including the number 9. It's like now the $100 million, that's where you spend on your center forward. That's what you do for that.
So
that's how you guarantee Victor Osimhen, as opposed to if you spend $100 million on Rodrigo, who's likely on the left. How much do you actually have financially for the number 9? And that's what you've needed for seasons now.
Yes.
You need to replace Martinelli and Trossard at a certain point, but it's not quite screaming out the same way that just, please, for the love of God, just a traditional center forward. You've seen, you watch your games back more than the fans watch their games. How do you not see that's what you need the most?
The truth is also that with a traditional center forward will come also, you will need a good 8. Because a traditional Haaland, you means you want goals.
Yeah.
You want to convert as much as opportunities that you have. It means you will also need someone that it's a good 8 or 10 that will be supplying these balls.
Yeah.
So they should also be fetching for a midfielder, in my opinion.
I do think that Odegaard can provide those passes if somebody's making those runs. The thing is, you've had Mikel Merino as a sort of false 9 drifting a little too far back. Now, don't get me wrong. I do think that Odegaard has some work in terms of his passing distribution. He does pass very side to side, but this has developed recently, and this has developed since they've lost the ability to press so strongly offensively. If they maintain forward momentum, he is able to actually bring those things through. The issue is that you've not had a number 9 really be able to give anybody trouble. So if you did have somebody like, hell, even Ivan Toney, I'm just bringing him up because he disappeared off the face of the earth, and I know that he wants publicity. But no, if you have somebody with a little bit of quickness, but with the technicality and the finishing ability, and he's the one that's directly on that line, waiting to find it, I do trust him with that. And I trust Rice right behind him for the more dirty kind of standard midfield work.
Midfield, yeah. Okay.
I do see that. I don't think that an attacking playmaking midfielder is what they need more than some of those things in the attacking front.
All right then. United is also looking to bring either Greenwood back, but this is just a rumor for now. Oh, but one thing they're looking to bring, actually, Amorim is looking to bring in Bemo from Brentford.
Okay.
The striker, so he can potentially be,
no more Portuguese guys.
he can potentially be
no more Dutch, striker. No more Portuguese. We're done.
And he's also bringing a midfielder. I don't know if it's Arsenal or United, but it's a rumor. The reason why I'm talking about the midfield because I looked at the rumor. I don't have it yet, but I'm just thinking. I was reading the article during the weekend, and the name was Cameroonian. That's how I remember.
There you go. Of course.
But he's not.
I know you're very loyal.
Yeah, I'm loyal, but he's not born there. It's just the name.
You're loyal to the players, not the teams at all. Which you know.
Which is interesting.
There's something about
it's
that.
Like, hey, if the player leave, I'm not there for the team.
Well, because the club doesn't care about you either.
No,
the club doesn't care about the fans. No club cares about the fans.
Trent Alexander-Arnold is definitely confirmed.
Yeah.
To go to Madrid, but Madrid is also gonna use the same tactics they've been using for a while now, and it's worked. So they're also looking at poaching Saliba, and
which that's been rumored for a season and a half.
It becomes more strong because Fabrizio Romano. Is it Romano his name? Well, Fabrizio, you know all the guy, but he actually posted it too. But he also posted as a rumor, but he said it's strongly a rumor. So, well, and if you're Arsenal, what do you want to do?
You need someone that's at least in or around that caliber at the back. He makes Gabriel better. So I don't know if you need to hold on to William Saliba that desperately, or if you just need to replace him right away if you do let him go. That's the thing. That's not a position that can be left open.
Yeah.
So if you can find somebody that you believe can assume that role, because he has not been he's been 50-50 in terms of being like one of the best defenders in Europe and being a very good defender.
Yeah.
And there have been times where at least when he was slacking and wasn't, because he has a couple mistakes in him, Gabriel was there to bring him up. Now, Gabriel spent more time in his career being average to slightly above average than being as good as William Saliba. That partnership, at least, made him. I don't think that Saliba's irreplaceable, but he's one that you cannot do what you did with the center forward situation, where you let someone go, you let Aubameyang go essentially years ago. And you never really, what did you really do with? So you can't let that languish. You can't think a season with Gabriel and Jakub Kiwior is going to give you a result.
Yeah.
Saliba and Gabriel being the central pieces where everyone can come in through rotation between one of those two, great. But you need to be going and basically doing what we joke about doing all the time.
Yeah.
You got to poach the French league, man.
Yeah.
You got to find somebody.
You got to go with that, man. They got the juice, bro.
There are other guys at his caliber buried somewhere in those squads, for sure. And they just don't have the things around them to bring it out of them. So he's not completely irreplaceable. So if he's desperate to go, if someone's willing to pay an extreme price for him, then maybe, but you need to be replacing him the exact same window. There is no holding on for anything.
If I'm Arsenal, to be honest, this is what I would do. One of the two things, but this won't be my priority. Gabriel, Saliba, he's hot, meaning in the market you will get a lot out of him.
Yeah.
So you bring him in the room and ask him two questions. Do you want to leave?
What's your fucking problem?
Yeah, don't fall into the Trent Alexander, because for sure when Madrid comes knocking, I always say Madrid. It's like the draft.
Yeah.
Once they draft you, once they come knocking, 95% of players want to go.
Yeah.
Because you cannot get everything in the sense that you get the accolades in a sense. You also get the media around you.
Yeah.
So it's a superstar team.
When Madrid has met with one of your players, or you know that they're interested in that player and that the player's interested in them, all that you ask at that point is, please just don't leave on a fucking free.
That's what I'm saying. If I'm asking that, I bring him in, I'm trying to understand what does he want to do. And if it doesn't show sign of fixated answer, I'm selling him in summer.
Yeah.
Because Madrid actually wants to buy him in summer. Or they will wait his contract expire in 2026 and just come get him for free. I don't want that.
Yeah. No.
Get money.
Because that's what Alexander-Arnold did. And everybody thought that it was kind of an honorable thing for him to stay as long as he did. He needed to re-sign, whether he wanted, like, because that's what you do. That's what Ronaldo did with United, was that he was like, he re-signed for one more year to ensure that his value went up. Even though they all knew that he was going, because at least you fetch a price tag for when you do leave, that we don't leave him high and dry.
That is
so
true.
they might have already had that conversation. I don't know.
That's
He's got
true.
2 years left, and he says, I'll finish out next season. I'll have one more year on my contract, and cut me loose for $50 million.
Yep.
Because 50 for one season of Saliba is not crazy to buy out that contract. You could probably get more. I'm probably lowballing that.
Yeah.
But for one season, your price does go down quite a bit.
That is true, and you get money to get some other players that you need. The Premier League is really exciting right now. I wish Arsenal didn't lose the game they just lost during the weekend against Bournemouth.
Yeah.
But the Liverpool officially won.
Yeah, good for them.
Had a guard of honor at Chelsea.
I'm sore.
Why Chelsea beat them down too, but it's pretty interesting. One thing though that shone or dawned upon me when I watched the league this weekend is why the hell Arsenal didn't rotate players.
Yeah.
Paris Saint-Germain this weekend sat down all their 10.
Yeah.
Did you see that?
Yeah.
Oh, you heard about it? So
and they still dropped points, but it wasn't about dropping the points because they've already won their league. If you've won your league and you've given up on your league, you're in the same position. One just has a trophy, one doesn't. But like you're excited. Like they don't have the bench.
Yeah,
they don't have it. It's like that's the thing. And it's like, don't get me wrong, you can probably just pull up an 18-year-old kid and go get the fuck out there, son. But like PSG has a much denser bench
that is
and roster than Arsenal does.
That
Arsenal might be punching above their pay grade in Europe.
Mm-hmm.
And even though they squandered the league more than Liverpool dominated the league, because there were points to have been gathered. Like whether Liverpool walks away with the title or not, the race could have been much tighter. You can look at very stringent moments within the league and say that's where you faltered.
Yeah,
that's where you faltered. So it's not so much down to like the 100-point Man City season where you're like, no one's coming close. You can't fault anybody for that. Like that's nobody's fault. That's their excellence. Whereas this was a mix of Liverpool playing much better than they should have, and Arsenal really dropping some things down. But they don't have the same bench. But if you've already resigned yourself to the fact that you're not winning the league, bring up the other kids because we need you on Wednesday.
Yeah.
We need you on Wednesday.
Because at this point, you still have hope that because it's still a 50-50 in the Champions League, you never know. You might win the Champions League. Yeah. So guess what? I would just focus on the Champions League. Bring some kids in. They go there and play whatever they can. Why? I rest my players and prepare for the battle on Wednesday.
Yeah. So, I agree. Even though it's been part of his philosophy. And again, we're at the point now, even as fans, where we like Arteta, and we've trusted the process. He has built a great squad.
He does.
But at the end of the day,
trophies.
There's a lack of silverware. So while you want to sit there and say, yes, I understand that your philosophy is that you don't want to bench so many starters, regardless of the ramifications of the game, so that it keeps them sharper.
Yeah,
that's all well and good. If we fucking win on Wednesday. You have to do that. And if they come out and they look tired on Wednesday, and that's part of the reason that it doesn't work out, now all of a sudden you don't look so genius anymore. You look more like Maresca.
Yeah. So actually, it's pretty interesting. I think this summer we'll come back to the Project Arsenal and try to debunk what has been done, what needs to be done to move forward. Because apparently it's not just that Arteta has there's also the fact that the athletic director has never made moves that needed to be made for them to acquire certain players that will help Arteta win. So it's very complex.
I expect a lot of moves for Arsenal, and I expect a lot of moves for Liverpool as well. I expect both.
Liverpool is going to be active.
So I'm actually very interested to see what their thought process is, because there are going to be a lot of guys in that Liverpool side on their way out. You're going to have to be really working on your rotation for the midfield. Mm-hmm. Your starting midfield shouldn't change at all. Gravenberch, Szoboszlai, McAllister. Those three, keep them. But, Endo's going to leave. Yeah. So you've got to replace him. You can't, because they also don't have that deep of a squad either.
That's true.
They're very, very well-oiled machine, and they do things very, very well. But they're not, dripping with density of talent.
Yes,
So they have to be very
that's true.
smart, and they've been doing that for years. So I'm not saying let's see if they
Well,
can get it done. They will. I'm just curious about the moves.
yeah, well, it also shows because towards the end of the season, if you don't rotate enough, you start having burnout where players,
Their quality dropped off, and
yeah,
Gravenberg
yeah,
got tired. When
that's
Gravenberg got burnt out, you could tell, and it completely fried the engine. McAllister held them together. Sabazlai stepped up a little bit, but yeah, you could tell
yeah,
how much he meant to that midfield when he was completely shot.
and that is definitely true. Arsenal, Paris Saint-Germain on the I think they're playing at Arsenal. I didn't know they're playing at Parc des Princes. Sorry.
Yep.
So Parc des Princes, that will be for you guys who don't know. That will be in Paris.
I think they figured, yeah, maybe they didn't.
For the
Where's that?
But for the English speakers, it's Paris. But in
Paris.
French, you don't pronounce S at the end of a word. So
Tell them.
so they're gonna go to the Parc des Princes. What do you expect them to do, or what they should do? If you're Arsenal, you want to win.
Yeah, well, there's no option because you squandered the entire home field advantage, and you did not press enough on defense. You did not press enough once you had the ball.
Yeah.
They need to be able to absorb the offensive pressure from PSG. So Kevior needs to be tight.
Yeah.
I who was it? Was it Barcola that gave? No, it was Doué. Doué gave Timber a run for his money. Now, I do think that Timber is a great one-on-one defender, so I'm not worried about him getting exposed.
Yeah.
But you can tell that that's going to be. He's going to have the sharpest game of his life, and luckily Saliba is on that side of him as well, so it's not a direct channel to Kevior.
Yeah.
Although that's Dembele's side. So they're wide players coming up front, even though recently Dembele's kind of been running through the middle a little bit more.
He's dropping down.
Playing against his traditional run of form, because that usually he's the wide guy that cuts inside. But yeah, lately he's been kind of hiding up in the midfield and doing running in deep in between the center backs.
The doing that also it's kind of difficult because once he does that, somebody like Saliba actually did this where he tried to pressure Dembele down, and then there was a whole alley exposed on the back.
Yeah,
that's why he does that. But I think if they start doing that during this game, Arsenal shouldn't really give up the spaces. What I mean by that is don't extra commit because they're fast. They're gonna beat you on the counter.
Well, and because they're letting their forward players kind of drift where they want to go.
Yeah.
Now you're worried also about not being able to man mark everybody. So now you're having to commit to mostly zonal marking, for the most part. But yet, what you don't want is for Dembele to be drifting in.
Yes.
And so instead of your left back, kind of dictating I've got the left wing, here we go. As soon as he cuts inside, you're handing him off to Kivior going, okay, we're hoping for the best now. Yeah. Fly and be free, I guess. But yeah, the freedom that they have up front makes it very difficult to mark them.
Yeah. Another thing is, if I'm Arsenal, I'll capitalize on that left wing. What I mean by left wing, Hakimi extra commit sometimes.
Yes.
And you can see that Lewis Kelly had a field trip at some point in that game where he came on that side and had he could thread the ball through, or he could overlap. If they take advantage of that space once Hakimi is up front, they can actually have opportunities coming from that side.
Now, if you're PSG, and I agree entirely, both fullbacks press and are very attacking minded, but Hakimi leaves himself open even more. Do you think now that it's you're at home, you scored one away? Do you think, not that they drop back and park the bus because that's not their style, I don't think they could do that if they wanted to. Do you think that you limit Hakimi's amounts of runs to avoid that? It's not saying they don't press once they have the ball offensively, but do you think that maybe you say, hey son, you're not a fucking winger. You're going to step back a little bit.
It's going to be difficult because Hakimi does that by nature. He's not actually a defensive winger. He's an offensive winger. So how they use him then is how he's being used is what they're going to still do. They use him to on the left side, like on the Lewis Kelly side, they're gonna really saturate that side. It's gonna be every single time.
That's what allows Dembele to move into the midfield.
Yes,
it's because they're not sacrificing their wide offensive coverage because Hakimi's already up there.
And going back on this, I mean, this game they're gonna do it a lot. The reason why I say there's two things: they're leading, so they don't feel the pressure.
Yeah,
Arsenal has to score to set the tone, and it's the first 15 minutes. That's where Arsenal has to set the tone.
Yeah,
In
I agree.
trying to set the tone, they're gonna be exposed at the back if they overcommit and they don't figure out where all the Paris Saint-Germain all the players are to mark them zonally. You can't do a one-on-one with these guys just because of how fluid they are, and rotational they are. And in doing so, if they overcommit on that left side, Hakimi do it, and they're gonna overload that side as soon as possible. So they have to really be intelligent about it. Because they're gonna do it. Hakimi, it's difficult to limit him. I've never seen him playing defensive, either for Morocco and either for. It's gonna be difficult.
True.
It's more like second nature to him, and he don't defend. The thing about
he don't defend.
He don't defend. He don't come down. So this is what you want to capitalize on.
Yeah, I think that if Thomas Partey can kind of sit back in the six,
Thomas Partey will be key.
Yeah, I agree with that. So yeah, it'll be interesting. I don't expect a victory out of that. It's just that's difficult to come back from this.
Especially the players that have played too during the week. That's also another worry. But I'm interested to see how this will turn out.
I expect a 2-1. I think a 2-1 result from this. From this leg, yeah.
Barcelona Inter. We talked about Barcelona. I mean, we talked.
That was
about
a shootout,
Yamal,
wasn't it? Holy cow!
My goodness. Inter is actually not just kind of a little bit following the league. Actually, they have a drop in form because of burnout too. So Barcelona didn't really meet the best Inter. On the other side, Barcelona also is lacking Balde on that left side. That's why all of their movement came from the right side, and it's very, very interesting because the two things people thought either Barcelona is gonna have a field day with them or either Inter, one of both sides. But that was a really balanced game. And I think this is the first time for me since I watched Barcelona. This was the first test for Barcelona in a sense. Because this game was... Man, what about Dumfries' performance though? He just came out of injuries.
He's really good, man. I've always been impressed by him. And I think like a lot of the players that play for Inter... I think he's just as good as the other guys that we talk about in those positions.
That's true.
I think that Bastoni is just as good as center back as Saliba on his day. I think that Dumfries is a phenomenal, even though he plays more as a wing back because he basically stays in the midfield.
That's what I'm saying. Like he has lungs for days. Yeah. Every time I see him play, it's like the whole team say, "Hey, Dumfries, all that it's yours."
It's yours.
Because he defends.
And I'll take it.
And he attacks. I wonder how long he can do that in his career because that will burn out a player real quick. Yeah. By 28, you will have to pick a side.
He's not far from 28 from what I remember. I'm double checking right now. He is... he's 29.
Dang.
He's 29.
That at 29?
Yeah.
That is...
Because he didn't look
29 though.
No. Well, he's in good shape. He's in good shape from this. No, because he's been playing this way for Inter for seasons now. Just being that wing back that really
one assist, 2 goals.
Pace, man.
One assist, 2 goals. That guy was really incredible for Inter. One thing that Inter did one of the mistakes was after scoring, they went kind of retreated back, and now if you retreat back with a team like Barcelona, they're gonna keep pounding until now you have access. You can see the field through their lenses. They can tread through. And the good thing about this Barcelona team, they have so many assets. They can put it, they can have a run through with Olmo running in and Yamal just kind of treading or dropping either it's a through ball, either it's a long ball. They just have it in them. And even Rafinha, and I think if Balde plays, it's gonna be tougher for Dumfries because Rafinha didn't he didn't play as center as he's used to because Balde is not coming in too.
Right. Yeah, I think that it's gonna be more of the same. Neither side really needs to just aside from maybe tightening up a little bit in defense on quick transitions, but I mean. You're gonna see more of the same, I think, and it was a great game. I think that everyone was a bit more focused on PSG and Arsenal, and both these guys just came in and said, "Hey, we're gonna do exactly what we always do." And certain play styles that clash end up meaning just a more inherently interesting matchup at the same time.
True.
And some people thought that this would be boring. Some people thought that this would just be a tennis player against a brick wall. But not. Like
I was on the edge.
Yeah, I agree.
I think this is the game that changed Yamal's perspective people's perspective on Yamal.
Yeah.
Because Yamal played the, at some point during the game, he just woke up.
Yeah.
Oh man, Bastoni, DeMarco, all these guys.
Yeah.
They and the other thing that if I'm in there, don't let Yamal touch too much the ball.
Yeah.
Tricky wingers, you can't let them. One of the touches is insane. It means you didn't even defend. He just had it every time. So.
Yeah, I agree. You can't. And he's able to make so much use of that little space that he can get. Also, he's not just that sort of. I'm gonna cut inside, 2 steps in, cut out. It's like he is treating it like FIFA skill moves. Yeah.
Exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Especially that second goal.
Yeah.
I looked at it when he was coming, cutting back, doing the roundabout. Then I was like, he's gonna shoot.
Like, what is going on?
He's gonna shoot. I've seen this too much, but yeah. So this was very interesting. I'm looking forward to watch what's gonna happen this week. And if you are looking forward what's gonna happen this week, go and subscribe, listen to us.
Yeah, bitch.
Spotify, YouTube, TikTok, and every other outlet you can get us. Go do it. Go participate.
And we're changing the format of our shorts, you little bitches. Apparently, people like text on their stupid shorts.
Because
so we're getting that for you.
So span.
Yeah. So you greedy little piggies, you're gonna get some more shorts with little words on them, little words that you can read. Can you read?
Yeah, I guess they can. But guess what?
We
give a round of applause for Hurricane before we leave.
Reading fucking Rainbow.
Hurricane is getting his first silverware.
He got it.
Every time you leave Tottenham, you win. Bye.
Goodbye.